political reporter for years, I've never seen people come out in those numbers with that kind of margin for it. Have you ever seen like a process-based ballot measure that was sort of this narrow and this last minute in some ways have the kind of galvanizing effect as last night's did?
Never. And by the way, Chris, kudos to you. You pointed something out that I think has really gone unremarked. This was not a low turnout affair. I mean, it wasn't a low turnout affair in New Jersey or New York or Virginia, and it wasn't a low turnout affair in California either. And so this was not a situation in which you had very few people voting and, you just had quirky things happen. This was, as you say, an energized electorate that made a decision that they had had enough and that they were going to stand up for democracy. In California, it's not just that it was high turnout for what you call a process, but think about it. If I had told you a year ago that there would be a ballot initiative in California to undo a nonpartisan commission map and put in place a partisan map, you would have told me I was crazy. If I had also told you that in Virginia, the way in which Democrats would rescue, frankly, one of their more difficult candidates for attorney general would be by pivoting towards the promise of redrawing maps, that would energize and galvanize electorate and flip, 13 state house seats along the way. You would have said I was crazy. And finally, Chris, in Maine, how many times have you and I been lectured by Republicans about how popular voter ID is? Well, voter ID was on the ballot in Maine and it got smoked. I mean, it lost by 20 points in Maine, which, as you know, is a kind of purple state. So there was a lot of democracy on the ballot last night, and democracy won.
The Republicans are going to sue to try to stop the California order. Do you think there's much to that lawsuit? What's your read on that?
They're going to lose. So just to be clear, California Republicans filed 2 cases already in the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court didn't even wait for the state of California to answer before dismissing them. Then Ronnie Jackson, MAGA congressman from Texas, he filed a lawsuit in Matthew Kacsmarik's courthouse. As you know, Judge Kacsmarik is a
I love Amarillo this time of year.
Yeah, very conservative. He's oftentimes a place where if you're very conservative, you go to his courtroom and hope to get a hearing. Ronnie Jackson's lawsuit was dismissed, challenging the California map. Then Darrell Issa filed a lawsuit in the same courtroom in Texas, in Judge Kacsmarik's courtroom, and that was dismissed sua sponte. So this is actually now the 6th case that they have filed challenging the California map, and it will be the 6th defeat that Republicans will suffer.
The question of election, free and fair elections in this country, which is something that I think we feel like is under threat. And it's not just the gerrymandering, which is a kind of like gray area, quasi-legal, but essentially anti-democratic pooch, right? But even more heavy-handed things. The Department of Justice announces we're going to monitor, these election sites. They said that beforehand. Alina Habba was, ranting about that in New Jersey. The possibility of ICE agents being sent to, spook people at voting locations. The possibility of post-return litigation or actions by the Department of Justice. Like, last night, basically none of that happened. And I'm curious how you feel about that. To me, it's encouraging. It's kind of funny also that Donald Trump tacitly is like, yeah, we lost. I wasn't on the ballot. Don't look at me. As opposed to it was stolen. But then he was out there today being like, we need to end the filibuster so we can get national voter ID. So what do you make it?
Yeah. So look, Donald Trump's big lies have not gone away, and election denialism is still in full force in the Republican Party. And unfortunately, we're going to see it in the 2026 midterm elections. I think Donald Trump, and by the way, in the lead up to this election, remember, Donald Trump over the weekend said that there was already massive fraud in California. Yeah. And, he already, and the White House already said that they needed to clamp down and pass new executive orders. That's before the results even came in. I think this morning, Donald Trump woke up and had a choice. He could either claim that, 17-point defeats were actually the result of fraud, or he could just blame everyone else. And he went with blame everyone else. So I don't think that he's going to be able to do that in 2026 when it's Congress that's on the line, when it's curbing his power. As much as he likes to have Republicans in positions of power in governorships, it's not crucial to his power in the same way it is with Congress. So I expect we will see the full bag of tricks back for 2020.
No crowns, no thrones, no kings. That's what this victory represents. It's a victory for the people of the state of California and the United States of America.
In our politics lead, that is Gavin Newsom, California's Democratic governor and a possible 2028 presidential hopeful, who scored a major win last night after voters in his state overwhelmingly approved his effort to make 5 U.S. House districts more favorable to Democrats. This is in direct response to Texas Republicans redrawing their state's congressional maps mid-decade in hopes of moving 5 House seats to the right ahead of next year's crucial midterm elections. Here now is the California Attorney General, Rob Bonta. He's a Democrat. So, Attorney General Bonta, thank you so much for joining us. Yesterday, while voting was still underway, President Trump posted on social media the following, quote, "The unconstitutional redistricting vote in California is a giant scam in that the entire process, in particular the voting itself, is rigged. All mail-in ballots, where the Republicans in that state are shut out, is under very serious legal and criminal review. Stay tuned." Do you have any idea what legal review or criminal review he's talking about?
Not at all. And just rantings that are hard to follow, no basis in law or fact that I'm aware of, but consistent with for him to be criticizing the proposition, criticizing vote by mail generally, vote by mail in California, the elections in California, a blue state that has not supported him and has firmly rejected him multiple times when he's run for president. So not aware of what he's referring to. We haven't seen any evidence of a criminal investigation. Maybe chalk it up to wild rantings, but maybe we'll see something in the future, but not aware of anything now.
We should note that President Trump has voted by mail in the past. He votes in Florida. And he does not, he generally speaking, has voted, well, he's voted by mail. A group of California Republicans, they've already filed a federal lawsuit challenging this new map, arguing it, quote, violated the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution when it drew new congressional district lines based on race, specifically to favor Hispanic voters without cause or evidence to justify it, unquote. What's your reaction to the Republican lawsuit?
This is another lawsuit in a litany of lawsuits, all of which up to now have been firmly rejected by the courts, none of which have had any traction, any legal basis, and all of which have been dismissed up to now. We'll see what happens with this one, but I will say the people of California voted. They voted loud and clear, overwhelmingly. Trump was not on the ballot, but he was on the ballot. His specter loomed large. This was a referendum on Trump. People want affordability. They want lawfulness. They want the Constitution. They want democracy. I think that their voices should be upheld, and the will of the voters should be honored.
Last night, during his victory speech, Governor Newsom called on his friends, meaning Democrats, in Virginia, Maryland, New York, Illinois, Colorado, to, quote, meet this moment, meaning he wanted redistricting mid-decade done by those states as well. Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley, who you know from California, he opposed Prop 50. He's pushing back. Here's some of what he said in a social media post. Take a listen.
It's a race to the bottom that degrades democracy everywhere. It's both a symptom of our country's political divisions and a troubling new trend that is sure to make that division even worse.
Is he wrong?
No. Maybe this is an area for bipartisan collaboration. If Congressmember Kiley wanted to author a bill that required every state to have an independent redistricting commission, I bet there'll be a lot of Democrats that get behind that. California had one. It was the right thing to do, but we can't have unilateral disarmament where we're tying our hand behind our back and allowing others to manipulate the process and create more districts. It needs to be the same rules for everybody. And Governor Newsom is asking other states to meet the moment to neutralize the abuse of power by gerrymandering in red states. That's what Prop 50 was about, to neutralize the 5 districts created in Texas.
Trump and Mike Johnson, they're going to definitely blame each other because no one wants to take responsibility. We know Trump doesn't take responsibility, right? We know this. We know one thing that Donald is extremely reluctant to do is admit anything is his fault. I remember when he lost the midterms back in 2022, there were reports that he blamed Melania. Like, he blamed her because she said good things about Dr. Oz, and then he picked Dr. Oz as his endorsement. And of course, Trump's endorsement in the GOP is effectively law because it's a cult. And he ended up being a less than good candidate and lost them that Senate seat, right? Against a John Fetterman who was still very, very much reeling after his stroke, right? He was barely able to campaign. And still, a terrible Dr. Oz candidacy lost them that seat, right? The fact is, Donald will never take responsibility, but Mike doesn't want to either. But this is the party they created together. They created this mess. They created this calamity. And they did it through the tariffs. And Mike did it to himself because he's given himself the worst of both worlds. Because, on the one hand, he, as the captain of the ship of Republicans in Congress, because the Speaker of the House for the governing party is always the number 2 target after the president themselves. He, when you're the captain, you go down with the ship, and he is getting the blame right now. But he also gave away all of his power. He doesn't even have the power that a typical non-joke speaker has. He's not even really speaker. He never was under Trump. Like, Elon was speaker for a few months. Is Stephen Miller speaker now? I don't friggin' know. It's not Mike Johnson in any practical terms because he refuses to actually use his gavel and do anything. Because what he's effectively said is, I'm going to let Trump be dictator. I don't even want to run Congress. I'm not going to swear people in. I'm not going to be open. I'm not going to do sweet FA. And so not only is he going to get blamed, he didn't even preserve any of his power to actually do something to fix it. Because say what you will about Pelosi and about other historic speakers, Republicans and Democrats. They maintained power independent of the president, even when the president was from their own party. So they could make moves if they needed. Mike did not do that.